Welcome to AuthorpreneurTV, real talk about what it takes to be an author in the digital age. So I wanted to talk today about websites. This is a question that someone asked the other day. Basically, I posted something about, a link in the group asking for people to give their website address, and a few people posted theirs, and then some people said they didn't have one yet. And so I wanted to just address that because I think it's really, really important. And I will preface this by saying it is not at all more important than writing a good story, learning craft, or being able to do something that's going to be useful for a reader. But you want to have your author brand built before you launch your book. So a lot of writers will say, oh, well, I'll get my website going once my book is published and I'm able to have a book out there that I can sell and all that. But think of it this way. If you have your book out there, now you have to backtrack to build a website, build an author presence, and meanwhile you have a book out there that's collecting dust and got crickets, chirping because no one knows about you, no one knows about your book, and you have no email list, you have no, followers. So what you want to be doing is pretending that you already have a book out and say, if I did, what would I do in that case? And you want to have a website. So at the bare minimum, you want to have an author website, a place where you can, if people are Googling you, or if you, want to tell somebody that you're an author or that you're a writer, have a place that they can go to check you out. And this is really, really important, even in the early stages. Now, I will again say it is not more important, not at all more important than writing a good story, than learning craft, or than putting together something that's actually going to be worth publishing. That is more important than anything else. But what you don't want to do is launch your book and have no presence built online, because then what happens is you have no way to market your book. You have nobody there ready to buy it once it launches. So if you start now, by the time you have your book published, you'll have an audience, you'll have a following, and you'll have people available to sell your book to. So some things to be thinking about, there are lots of free services out there for websites. You can go to Wix.com is one, WordPress.com, that's one of my favorite ones, but there's a lot of other ones out there. And these come with customized or customizable templates that you can download, that you can use. They're all free, and you can make your website look really professional. Now, I will say that if you're going to have an author website, it would not hurt to also have a blog. And I'm actually going to do another episode about this separately, but having a blog is really important, especially if you're an author and especially if you're a writer, because a blog is a way to show people you're writing, and it's a way to get writing out there. And Google loves websites that have content that change on a regular basis. And so if you have a website and you have a blog and your content changes on a regular basis because you're adding new articles to it, then you're actually able to, get traffic and start to rank higher in Google search results because of that. So when I first started out, I didn't have any readers. It was just me, writing to the abyss of the internet. This was back in 2008. But I just pretended that I had people reading it. And so every week I wrote an article and I posted it. So by the end of the year, I had about 52 articles that were on my blog. From there, I was able to, use that to grow into having an email list, having people who are actually subscribing to my site and following my blog and all of that. So be pretending now that you already are the author, writer that you want to be. And if you had your book out, if you had, millions of followers, whatever it is, where would you go from there? What would you have as your online presence? Definitely want a website. You probably also want some sort of social media, maybe a Facebook page or a Twitter account, but Twitter's kind of, I don't know. I think Twitter's kind of falling off, but maybe there's people who still use it. Instagram is really good. There's Pinterest. I mean, there's a lot of different options for social media. I will say, though, that Facebook is probably the top one, and only because everybody's on it. It's one of the biggest platforms in the world. I think it is actually the biggest platform, social media platform in the world. So, and they're always expanding what they offer. So you're able to do more and more. So like now I can do live streams that I couldn't do before. I can go right in my groups and do them. So it opens up possibility for all different kinds of content and training and all kinds of stuff. So same thing for you. If you have a Facebook page, you could live stream, talking about your new book. You can talk about, your launch process, the revision process, or whatever you're working on. There's a lot of different things you can do to, create content for your audience and to build a following. And if you can do all this stuff before you have a book out, so, when I published my first book back in 2010, it was March, I think, 2010, it was a nonfiction e-guide. It was called Button Chair. It's still available now if you want to check it out on Amazon. But I put that out there 2 years after I started blogging, after I started having an online presence. And so I was able to make money from the book right away because I had a following already. So I had an email list. I had people who were ready and waiting for the book to come out when I, started talking about it and letting everybody know it was coming. People were contacting me and excited about it. So when I launched it, I automatically sold a bunch of copies right away, and then it just kept going from there. So over the course of a couple of years, I ended up selling like $3,500 worth of one, ebook on my website, which was pretty awesome. So that's why it's really important to have a website now and not later, because if you're building your presence now, by the time your book comes out, you'll have a following, you'll have an online brand, and then you'll just be able to sell your book. You'll just be able to market it and launch it and be done and move on to the next book. Whereas if you launch it after the book is out, then you have to basically hold this product that you have that you could be potentially making money off of, and you have to hold it until you have a website, until you have an email list, so that you can attract people and so you can keep them, interested in what you're doing. So definitely think about having an author website as soon as you possibly can. Again, I'm going to say, and I say this 3 times in this video because it's that important, do not make having an online presence, having a website, having social media, creating content for social media or blogging, do not make any of that stuff more important than getting your book done, getting your writing done, getting your novel done, whatever it is you want to do. Do not make any of that stuff more important than that, because it's not. Writing a good story, having a good book, mastering the craft of writing novels or whatever type of writing project you're doing, mastering the craft of it, because that is the most important thing, and that's what's going to keep people interested in what you're doing. If you have a gorgeous, author website, if you have a great online presence, if you created all this great content on your blog and on your social media, but then your book sucks, guess what? You're not going to have any readers. And if you do, they're going to all buy your book and be really disappointed. They're going to give you bad reviews, and they're never going to buy from you again. So you want to make sure that while again, your brand is important, and it's very much something you have to do, especially in the digital age. You have to be online and you have to have an online presence if you want to sell books digitally, if you want to sell books from Amazon. I mean, you can do it without that, but it's really hard, because today when people say, oh, what do you do? And you say, oh, I'm an author. The first thing they're going to go and say is, oh, do you have a website? Or they're going to go, hear about you, and they're automatically going to go look for your website and see if you have one or not. They're going to want to check you out. And if you don't, it's going to make you look like you kind of are, maybe not with it. And that's a problem, because especially people who are looking for books online and things, they want people who are online too. They want to see you have a presence, because that just shows that they can trust you. They can know who you are, they can like you, and they can trust that you're going to give them a good book, that you're going to give them something that's valuable, worth their money being spent, and all of that. So if you have questions about creating an author website, I'm gonna probably do more videos on this topic, because it's pretty important. But I just wanted to kind of answer the question of, should I have an author website now or when my book comes out? Because I think it's really important to make the distinction that you don't want to wait, because then you're just sitting on a product that you have no way of marketing, no way of getting out there really, because you don't have an online presence. So two go hand in hand. You got to have both of them. Still, number one being the most important thing is having a good book and knowing craft and being able to write a good story. But then you also want supporting it, your author platform, which is your website, it's your blog, it's any social media channels that you have, and all of that. Now, don't get overwhelmed, because there is a lot of stuff out there. The way I would recommend starting is start with a website. Start with a website with a blog if you know that you're going to want to write about stuff and actually have content on your blog on a regular basis. Start with that. Then get a Facebook page. Maybe you already have. I think a lot of people usually start with a Facebook page, which is fine. You could make your Facebook page completely your author platform if that's what you wanted. The thing to keep in mind, though, is that you don't own it. So if Facebook decided to shut your page down one day, if they didn't like something you posted and they wanted to turn your page off, they can, and you can't do anything about it. So that's why it's important to have a website, because you own that. Well, okay, you own it if you host it. So if you're on a free platform, you don't own it. So technically they could shut it down too. Now, I've never, ever heard of this happening, but it's always a possibility. And so I say it because it's important to know eventually you're going to want to host your own website so that you can be in control of the content, so that you can know that you own it and nobody could ever shut it down on you. But when I started off, I had a free website. I did not pay for anything until at least 2 years into my business. Or 2 years into being a writer and being online. So if you have questions, put them in the comments and I'd be happy to answer them for you, and I will catch you next time.